Hello everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining today's SQL Server Part 2 session. In yesterday's session, we looked at how to install both SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio. And also, we created databases, tables, and inserted data into tables using SQL Server Management Studio. And also we have seen how to write TSQL to create the tables, databases and inserting the data into tables. What do you mean by TSQL? TSQL. So in SQL Server, they call it as TSQL. TSQL stands for Transact SQL. Transact SQL. Instead of saying SQL, in SQL, Microsoft SQL Server, they call it as a Transact SQL. So why do they call it as a Transact SQL? It is nothing but SQL queries only. But here, the Microsoft SQL queries are procedure-oriented language. Okay, hence it is called a Transact SQL. That is the difference between the typical SQL and Transact SQL. But I don't see any difference between these two. Anyhow, you can write the SQL queries batch by batch, right? So you can execute the SQL queries batch by batch using Go. That's what we have seen it yesterday. Okay, in today's session, we will learn the data types that are available in SQL Server and also the constraints, different types of constraints, how to create constraints. So why we need constraints, all those things we will take a look at it today. And also we will see how to write basic SQL queries, how to do joins in SQL. Okay, and also you will learn as part of this what are the different joins that are available in SQL. And then the upcoming weekend, we will continue with the joins in SQL because in SQL Server, we have a lot of data types are available compared to other programming languages, other RDBMS softwares. In SQL Server, a lot of data types are available. Hence, it might take more time. So if I'll try to finish the joins in SQL today itself, otherwise we will carry forward to the upcoming weekend. The upcoming weekend will cover all types of joins in SQL and also we will write advanced SQL queries. Okay, and also most likely if everything goes well, next Sunday we'll start the Power BI session. Okay, so now let us jump into learning data types that are available in different data types that are available in Microsoft SQL Server. Before we learn the different data types, first of all, let us understand what is a data type is all about. What is a data type? It is nothing but the type of value or the data that a variable can store. That is what data type is all about. Right? For example, one second. For example, I have a variable called quantity. Quantity is a numeric variable. Quantity is a numeric variable. Right? So the variable quantity can hold integer value in it, right? Or the whole number. The quantity can hold. So here the type of data or the type of the data, let's say quantity is 10 or 20 or 15, right? The type of value which we store it in this variable, right, is numeric variable. Or if you use the technical term, it is an integer data type. Integer data type is nothing but integer value. It is a whole number. Okay. So in the case of quantity, it is a numeric value and also it is a whole number. Hence we call that as a integer data type. This variable is integer data type. In SQL Server, for the integer data type, we have to define it as int. We have to define it as int. Let's take another example. I have a variable called salary. It is also a numeric variable, but it is a decimal number. Hence, we need to use decimal data type. So see, salary can hold. So it is not a whole number, isn't it? So let's say your salary is 105,321. So 105k dot 63 after LOP, loss of pay, when they deduct it, this is your net earnings. Your net earnings will not be, not necessarily your net earnings should be a whole number, right? It is a decimal value. It is a decimal data type. Hence, though salary is a numeric variable, it is a decimal data type. So how do I define a decimal data type in SQL Server? We use the keyword decimal. We use the keyword decimal. After followed by this, we define the size of the decimal or the width of the decimal data type. I just strike it out and write it neatly, decimal, and inside the parenthesis followed by this you need to specify two values here. Let's say I specify 8, 2. What does this 8 says? This one says, hey, I can accommodate 8-digit numbers in this variable salary. I can accommodate in total 8 digits. That means of the 8 digits, 2 digits are reserved for decimal value. For example, here in the case of salary, if I define it like this, right, decimal 8, 2 as a data type for salary, let's say my salary is 105,321, 6 digits dot 63. So these two are reserved for the decimal and the remaining 6 for integer. So the total number of digits which you can store it in decimal in this salary variable is 8. Hope you understood the difference between the integer data type and decimal data type, and also you understood the arguments here, right? The first argument states the total number of digits that is allowed to store it in salary variable. Of the 8 digits, 2 digits will be used for storing the decimal values. That's it. It's pretty simple, isn't it? So apart from this, so these are the commonly used data types in most of the programming languages. Numeric data type, and you have string data type, date and time, and binary, and also other miscellaneous data types. Okay. In SQL Server, a lot of data types are available. It's quite overwhelming. For example, in the case of integer data type, within the integer data type itself, a lot of data types are available. Okay, so within the integer data type itself, many data types are available. Okay, so when it comes to numeric variable, there are two types of data types are available. As I discussed a while back, integer and decimal. Within integer, you have something like big int, small int, tiny int, bit. So 5 different integer data types are available. And also in the decimal data type, we have decimal, money, small money, numeric. Four different data types are available as per decimal, and 5 different data types are available within the integer data type itself. So a lot of data types are available in SQL Server. So this is to suit different use cases. They created different types of data types, and also in the with the intention of storing the data in a more optimal way, they came up with different data types. Okay, it's quite overwhelming sometimes, right? It is quite overwhelming for the beginners to learn all the data types. So if you look at here, the integer data type can hold the data between these two ranges, anywhere between these two ranges. And also in the case of bit data type, it can store 0 and 1 only. So when should I use bit data type? So what kind of use case? For example, in your application, you have a checkbox. If you select the checkbox, or if you tick off the checkbox, that means it's true. So 1 is true and 0 represents false. So in that kind of situation, you will be using bit data type. right? In your application you are using checkbox. If you unselect it, it will be 0. If you select it, 1. That kind of situation you'll be using bit data type. And decimal data type, if you store the, so decimal, a variable, once you define a variable as a decimal, it can take values anywhere between these two. These are the range of values. And date time, so it can take from Jan 1st to Jan 1st 1753 to December 31 99949. And then for under string, you can find char data type. It can hold, the char variable can hold maximum 8000 characters. It's a fixed length Unicode card. And next one is varchar. The varchar falls under string category, and varchar is a maximum length of 8000 characters. As the name says, it can this variable can, whatever the value you store it as part of the varchar data type, the values will be varying. Okay. So the next one is binary data type. So the maximum length of this one, 8000 bytes, is the fixed length binary data. Like if you want to store some documents or some binary data, you can use binary data type. Next, we will see what are the built-in functions that are available for for each data type. For the numeric data type, ABS function is available, round function, ceiling function, floor function, count function. So these functions are available. These are the built-in functions. You don't have to write any functions to find out the minimum value, maximum value from your data set. The minimum, maximum, sum, and count, these are all called aggregation functions. What is aggregation functions? Aggregation functions are nothing but presenting your data in a summarized format. Anyhow, don't worry, as part of data analytics, as part of Power BI, we'll be working more on the aggregation part also. Okay, but compared to Power SQL Server, in Power BI, we don't have so many data types. Okay, don't worry. Now let us see how to use all these functions. Okay, I just go ahead and launch SQL Server Management Studio. If you guys wanted to practice along with me, you can also launch the SQL Server Management Studio and start work along with me. So I'm not going to change anything here. I simply leave these default values as it is. I just click on connect. Now it got connected just beneath this object explorer. Okay, so you can see all these things. I'm not going to do anything here. I just simply click on new query. You can also click on the new query. On the right side, you will find SQL query 1.sql, right? So the new query window open here. So here what we do is we'll start with something like the ABS function, round function, like other programming languages. These functions, like other programming languages also, all these functions, most of these functions are available. So 1 second, I just say negative 43342.45, and if I say something like that, okay, I'm going to say execute. I'm going to click execute. So 342.45. Here I don't see any column name. Hence, if you want to define some meaning value for the column name, what you do is you can use as keyword. Let's say here absolute value, something like that, absolute value, and you can click on execute button. Yes, now the column name is meaningful and the negative value got removed. So in math, the absolute, you might have used absolute in math, right? The same principle is applicable here also when you use ABS function. With ABS built-in function, we can produce the absolute value. It removes the negative value, that's all. So next one is I'm going to use round function. Select round. I'm going to say, let's say 105.32 as a rounded value. I'm going to say, see here, I did not specify the number of digits that it should round, right? So if you make any mistake, it will underline that, okay, like this. That means you have some syntax mistake, and when you hover the cursor here, it will help you to fix this error. The round function requires 2 to 3 arguments. The round function requires 2 to 3 arguments. In that case, I'm going to say 2 here. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to select here. I'm going to select 105.32. Okay, 105.32. So fine. The next one is we will use. So as I told you here, look here. So if I remove this, it is an error. And if I, so the round function requires 2 to 3 arguments. That means at the maximum it can take 3 arguments. But in this example, we have used only 2 arguments. With this, we could see that 105.32 is fine. So it is taking the second parameter is the rounded value, right? So it rounds a number to the specified number of decimal places. Since we specify 2 here, it rounds the number to 2 decimal places. That's it. The next one is before we jump in there, I'm going to see something interesting here. For example, I'm going to say 125.43 comma -1, okay, as rounded value, value, something like that. I just say go, and if I select this, look here, 130. So what is happening if I specify -1? What is happening here? It rounds it rounds the value, right? It rounds the value more than this value, right? So 130, the highest value. It's something like the ceiling and floor. You'll see what is ceiling and floor. Let me do one thing here. So I just use go here, so that it should not consider everything as a single batch. All these 3 are different batches. If you use go, it will consider the batch. The entire set of scripts will be sent to your database engine in one go. So here in this case, the third parameter. Okay, now let us use the third parameter. Okay, I just go ahead and say here I'm going to use the third parameter, which is called operation. Okay, which is called operation, and here I say 0 here. Let's see what happens here. Same as that one, 105.32. Here, okay, let me do one thing. Sorry, here I'm going to use 125.43, the same value. Okay. 130 here also I was getting 130. The last one is the operation. Okay, this is called your operation. It is an optional argument. If it zeros, if I say 0, it rounds the result to the number of decimal. Okay, it rounds the number to the number of decimal. Okay, if I use right, so let's say you can use, this is an optional value. Okay, if you use 1 here, let's see what happens here, 0 or 1. If I give like this, see, this is 130 and 120 here, right? If I use 1 here, I get something. Or let's say if I use 1 here, let's see what happens, 125.40, right? So 125.40, I'm getting it here. Look, I just store it. I just type it here. So this is the one, right? So how do I use comments in SQL Server SS Management Studio? _. If you want to use something like some comments, right? You can use double hyphen. So that means you cannot, when you execute this command, the SQL server engine will not, database engine will not execute this line. Simply ignore. If you specify double hyphen, that means you are writing a comment. Comment is a best practice. You have to use comments wherever it is required. It is one of the best practices, so that the business user can understand what logic you have implemented, or what logic or formula that you have used it in your select statement. Fine. Now we are going to compare the output of this query and this query. Hence I just copy pasted it here. But if I don't specify double hyphen just before this, the SQL database engine will think this is also a kind of a query. It will throw an error. Okay. So in order to tell the SQL database engine to ignore this line, you need to prefix this by 2 hyphen. If you specify single hyphen, it will throw an error. Okay. So look here, just below this you could not find stored procedure, something like that, right? So you need to specify double hyphen to specify the comment. Fine. Now it is a comment. I am going to just execute this one. So here I get 130 here. So here I have used -1, and here I have used 1 here. So what is the difference here? So what happens is, in this case, okay, and we will do one thing. I just use another one, right? So let me do, so okay, I just go ahead and use, I'll take one more query in order to compare this one. Okay, I just go ahead and execute this one, and also I copy this value 130 here, right? So these two are more or less same, right? By default it uses 0, but if you don't specify the third parameter or argument here, which means 0. Okay, and if I, okay, to validate my statement, I just go ahead and say 1 here. So I just go ahead and say 1 here. $120 here. Look here. So what is happening here? 120. Can someone type it in the chat window? What is your understanding here? Here if I use 0 as the third, first of all, you tell me, before we go here, the third argument. Now you tell me what is happening here. If I specify -1, what is happening? It is rounding off this integer value, since we have 125.43, right? So it rounding off this one to the next highest value. The next highest value is 130, right? So 125.43 is 130, and if I specify 0 here, right, by default it is a 0, hence it is rounding off to the next highest value. So after 125 it is 130, and if I specify 1 here, it is rounding of this value to the next lowest value, right? So 120. That is what is happening here. Okay, to validate this, now let us, okay, now we will compare this one with ceiling and floor. Select ceiling 125.43, okay, as ceiling value, go. Here I am getting 126. So here when you use ceiling value, this is the one we use in day-to-day life, right? So 126. Let's say I have something else called floor. Let's see what happens when I use floor. When I use this one, 125 here. In this case, when you use, sorry, this is not a ceiling value and floor value. Okay, so so in this case, right, when I use -1, -1, it round the number to -1 decimal place. -1 decimal place. That is what is happening here. -1 decimal place. That means it rounds it off to the next highest value, right? 130, and here it rounds it off the next lowest value, and 120, 130, 120. But when it comes this one, 125.43, ceiling value, upper value, right? The highest value, the highest the integer value is 126 here. The lowest integer value is 125 floor. That is the difference between these two. This is quite different thing, odd thing for you guys, right? But you just remember when you use the -1 for round, right? The third parameter as 0 and the third parameter is 1. Now you understand when you use 0 by default, if you don't specify 0 by default, the default value for the third argument is 0. In that case, what it does is this 125.43 to the next highest value. Okay, so right, so now let us see, so let's take something else. For example, I am going to say, let's say 150.43. so in this case what happens, 150, look here, so it just converts to 150, right? So what was the difference between, see, earlier I used 125.43 and the third parameter was 0, right? So in that case it was giving me 130, right? We were getting 130. But now, okay, let's take the same example. Why should I go to the 150? Let me do one thing, 120, right? So 120, if I say 120.43, so I'll be getting 120 here, right? So what is the difference between these two? Now you tell me, what is the difference between these two? Can someone type it in the chat window? Round function helps us the round the number to 2 decimal places in this case, but in this case, right, yeah, so round the number to -1. Okay, if I use 1, what will happen? So this is the common one, but when you use, you know very well, so 1 is not required. If I use -1, what happens here is, look here, so -1, 125.43. so okay, here, so if I do this, I'm getting 130. I just repeat it one more time, and if I use here 120, it gives me the 120 as it is. Okay, and okay, so the by default I told you it is 0, hence it converted to the 130, right? But here when I use 120, it gives me 120 only. So it means here in this case it truncates the decimal value by -1. But in this case, to truncate the decimal value, what it does is it converts the entire value to the next highest value. But here it converted this value, since we have used the third argument as 1, it converted this value to the next lowest value, right? So 120, it truncated the to truncate the decimal value, it converted this into the next lower value. So it is bit difficult to understand this one. It's it's a bit different, okay, this concept, but it is pretty simple. So this is how it works. Okay, you just think that, but the ceiling and floor are pretty straightforward. Okay, okay, if I specify, for example, yes, Simon, go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead and explain. Yeah, I'll just unmute it here. Yeah, you can go ahead. Simon wants to volunteer here. One second, I'll make you as, I'll unmute here. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What's happening is, for example, on the first one there, you put -1. Is it?
Yes.
So yes, if you have got a number like 120.43, then you are saying you are rounding to -1. You see, from the decimal point there, you are saying the decimal point, which is at 0.43 there. The 4 is a 1, the 3 is a 2, and if you are going to the right, the numbers will be increasing. But if you are going to the left, it becomes -1, -2, -3, and going there. So when you are saying now round to -1 there, you are looking at at the 0 there, or any number which is to the left before the decimal.
Okay.
So that's the number which is. So in
Okay.
that case, if the number is 120 there, we are looking at the zeros there, and it remains 120. If it is 125, we are looking at the value of 5, which must be rounded up. That's why we are saying we put a 0 where there is a 5 there and a 3.
Correct. So when you use -2, right? What is happening here? When I use -2, what is happening here? When I use 1 here, see now when I used -2, it is rounded it off to 100.
Yes, yes.
Now you tell me about your understanding.
So if you are using -2,
Yeah.
you are starting from the 0 there, from the decimal point there. You count -1 is at 0 and -2 is at 2. You look at the value of 2. Is it above 5 or below 5? When it is below 5, that's a 0, obviously. So it comes down to 100.
Yeah, above 5 or below 5, right? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Correct, right? So now you understood, right? So that is how it works. Fine. Okay. Next, we will see. See here we have a lot of functions, right? So when what we do is to understand count and min max. We will create a table a little later, and then we will see how count function, all this function, exponential, exponential function. I'll explain that also. And power will. What is power? Power will square the function, and then this one is numeric. Numeric is helpful to check whether the given data type is a number data type or not. It will return either true or false. Okay, that is what the functionality of this function is, numeric. Okay. Next one is you have format function. This is also very much helpful. If you want to generate any report, and when your report output should be formatted in a specific need, right? So, or let's say based on the specification, if you want to format your report, the format function is very much helpful. Look here, when you use this one, right, comma C4, so it prefixes this value by dollar currency, right? It is you have something called money data type, okay, and the SQL Server it is available. And also if you want to display the values, right, into percentage, you can use format, but in the format you need to specify the second argument. The desired format you need to specify it in the second argument. Okay, so you can try all these things. Okay, it's pretty simple one, very easy to understand, but very difficult to remember, but anyhow, right? So over a period of time, when you start practicing that, you will be able to understand, right? Next we will jump into the string type functions. These are the different string functions are available. It is quite exhaustive, but still it is helpful if you have to solve different business use cases or something like that, right? So if you have more built-in functions, you can solve it without writing program or lines and lines of code. Okay, you can leverage the pre-existing built-in functions. With this, you should be able to quickly solve certain use cases, right, to address some business issues or something like that, or to so for example, if you want to clean the data, you can use replace function, right? And also if you want to extract the specific portion at the right side of your string, you can use write function. And also left function, if you want to extract the specific characters from the left of the string, right, you can use left function. Format function also, if you want to specify format, right? So these are a lot of functions are available, right? I don't want you to overwhelm with by covering all these functions. We will look at a few frequently used or more useful functions. I wouldn't say more useful functions, most frequently used functions, right? We will take a look at it instead of going through all the functions, because in Power BI also a couple of built-in functions are available. But when it comes to Power BI, you have all you need to do is just go to the Power Query editor and just point and click. Just by doing the point and click, you can split the values in your string data type, and also you can extract the right portion of your string, red portion of your string, and you can do substring. All these string manipulations you can do it just by pointing and clicking the columns in Power Query Editor in Power BI. Okay, but when it comes to SQL query, yes, you have to remember all these functions, right? For example, you need to use something like you want to separate these strings based on some specific separator value. You need to remember which function, concat underscore ws. But when it comes to this one, it is good. Okay, I'll just open another query window. For example, I just want to say, let's say, concat. When I just type concat, it automatically displays the functions which starts with concat with like this. Okay, so here you can choose. For example, if I select this one, you can remember it. But still, so it's pretty much helpful. But you need to type it and do it everything here, right? So manually you need to type it and you need to remember it. But even in Power BI, you have something called concatenatex function is available. So you need to remember, but remembering so many functions, right? And it is a bit difficult. Hence, I'm going to cover the important function now. Okay, I'm not going to cover everything. You will be overwhelmed. So probably you can, if you are so curious to explore all these functions, you can go to the Microsoft manual, right? So I'll share the link, docs.microsoft.com, wherein you can find the detailed explanation with syntax for each and every function. Because if I cover each and every function, it will take longer time. The intention of this training program is to spend more time on Power BI, just help you guys to get started with SQL, and also we'll see the little advanced concepts of writing the SQL queries in Power BI. Hence, we are going to cover the important built-in functions. I'm not going to cover everything, okay? For example, hello, okay, and if I say hello world, right? So here I just say go. So I want to concatenate these two strings. Look here, hello world, right? So these two strings got concatenated. Okay, and if I want to leave a space in between these two, what can I do? One simple way of doing this is the one. Okay, just use a space bar. Just use a space bar, and then right now, if you execute this one, you will find a space between this. And also, you have some CHR function. CHR of 10 can also leave space between these two variable. For example, I don't remember we'll try now CHR of 10. Okay, let's see what happens here. Look here, using CHR 10. CHR 10 also returns a it returns the next line, but in this case what happens, right? It leaves the space between these two, right? For example, I don't have to give space here. I'll just remove this one. I just execute this one. Look here, though I removed the space here, right? Leading blank space, there's nothing but leading blank space, right? I just removed it. Now when I execute this with this, I can see. But if I remove char of 10, what happens? Though these two strings got concatenated, but in between there are no space. But I need a space between these two strings. After once you concatenate it, I want to see the space between these two strings. It is not available. Okay, so use char 10, or you can use the simple technique is you can leave a blank space between this. You can do it that way. So you can concatenate more than two string also. So here what I do is here I just specify like this. I just go and click execute. So hello world, right? So you need to leave space here also, right? So that these strings got concatenated. So with concat function, you can concatenate more than two strings like this. Okay, And now let us look at the other functions like a left. Select left of hello world. See, I have used a double quote here. To left extract. Look here, when I use double quote, it is highlighting something wrong. It says invalid column name. It says invalid column name hello world. Okay. So what does it says here? What does it says here? Can someone tell me? Simon, why don't you jump in? So why it is highlighting it here? Invalid column name hello world. If I use single quote, it is gone, right? It is not highlighting it. There is no syntax error. So here, okay, first of all, let's try to understand what does this left function does. It extracted 3 characters from this string, right? Extracted 3 characters from the left side of this string, right? So hell, HAL. If I put 4 here, and similarly, if I use the right function, right side of the string, if you want to extract the specific portion of your string on the right side, you can use so ORLD, right? The 4. So this is my right extract. So these are the functions are very much helpful to do the data cleaning in your string data type. Supposing you have let's say some cases, what will happen in the case of invoice number, what they do is they use alphanumeric value for the invoice number. What is alphanumeric? Numeric value along with the string. Okay, so with the alphanumeric value, in the alphanumeric value of your invoice number, they use some naming convention for different store. In the case of let's say you work for Walmart or bigger big box retail companies, right? They have stores across different locations. Each store to identify each store's invoice number, something like that. Right? So they say INV NC AX001, right? So this is called alphanumeric because the 001 is the numeric value. This is the string value here. The combination of the number and string is called alphanumeric. So they want to extract only the NC. NC stands for North Carolina. So they want to extract the specific location information, right? So in that case, it is very much helpful. So but here, can I use left and right? Will that be helpful? How can I extract only the specific character? Or let's say if the invoice number starts with something like that, NC, right? You want to extract the North Carolina related invoices alone, right? So in that case, you can use left. Okay, left extract. A simple example. Okay, supposing you have something like this, the intended character or the characters which you want to extract it, specific character which you want to extract it is there in the middle of your alphanumeric value. How can you do that? How can you do that? So we have substring, right? You can use substring. So how does this substring function works? Here, okay, this substring function. Look here. So I don't remember. It's not that I don't remember because I work with multiple or different programming languages. Okay, so see, look here. I use str in some function. You just type the first 3 or 4 letters. So since the Studio, SQL Server Studio has the code completion facility, you can see the functions that starts with the sub str, right? So just double click on it, and here I just go ahead and say INVNCAX001. okay, and if I use, see, the expression is this one, starting position, from which position I need to start in order to extract NC, 4th position, correct? So what is the length of the integer? 2. Sorry, length of the string, right? So here, as the location, something like that. Okay, go. We'll see what happens here. From the fourth position, extract to string. Okay, if you want to extract the specific string or characters from the given string, right, left side of the string, right, you can use left. If you want to extract the specific number of strings on the right side of the string, use right function, substring n. You can start from anywhere in your string. Okay, not only fourth position, you can start from. So look here, in this case what happens? So it start from the fourth position, 1 2 3 fourth position. From the fourth position, extract two strings or characters. That is enough. That is what happened here, substring. And the next one is a replace. Replace is very much helpful, because with the replace you can do some kind of cleaning in case of any for example, I'll show you with this one, replace function, and here's something like yeah, something like so I'm going to say in this case, right, so let's say or simple example. Okay, I just want to say peanut. I will take I want to see I want to replace let's say something called pelnet. So in that case what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is a old string, this is the syntax. Look here, this is the syntax. See, replace expression to be searched with nchar1 and search expression and replacement expression. The last one is the replacement expression. Replace the string L by which value? So peanut, right? So this is the one. So I'm going to use it this way. Let's see what happens. So replace the L. There is a typo here. Instead of peanut, they typed it pelnet. So look here. Replace the value as this one. So that is the that's how it works. Okay, the replace is very much helpful in case of search and replace. In this case, it searched the string L within this given string. Okay, it is there here, and then you replace the L by A. And another interesting function is select len function. Len function also you'll be using it. Supposing programmatically you want to compute the length of the string, and based on the length of the string you wanted to replace some values. In that case, len function is very much helpful. So here, test your skill, test your SQL skill. Can I specify double quote for string in SQL Server? No, you cannot, right? So here, so 19, the length of this string is 19. If you count it, or simply, let's take simple example here in test, 4 characters are there. So if you want to find out the length of this one, you can use this one. Okay. So these are the examples for the built-in functions that are available in SQL Server. Probably you can try, okay, we'll try concat WS. Concat WS we have not tried yet. So what I'm going to do is I just go ahead and probably I'll store all these scripts and then I'll share it with you guys. Those of you who are beginner to programming, you just start practice it. Okay, you can, it'll be helpful for you guys. For example, concat WS, right? So I just remove everything. I just type it here. Separator, you need to specify. For example, I just want to separate the expression. Okay, here I say welcome. Welcome to SQL. So now it is gone. So separator, first one is separator, and expression, 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 returns worker 1, right? So now I just got, so what it does is it separates all these 3 strings by hyphen, welcome hyphen to hyphen SQL. Okay, so this is how you can use it. It's pretty much easier, since the syntax is also available as part of the code completion facility that is provided in a server, SQL Studio. You can start practice it, and also similarly you try format and lower ntrim, ltrim, or trim, also ltrim. Let's try ltrim here. For example, I just say select ltrim of, let's say I leave 2 space and yes, go. It'll remove the trailing leading blank spaces, right? Leading blank spaces. The blank spaces got removed. Look here, yes is available here. If I don't use this one, what will happen? If I don't use, it'll leave 2 spaces before yes, and then it will display that one, right? Look here, 2 spaces are there, so 1 or 2. But when I use ltrim, look here, I'm going to watch closely here. So now the s is displayed on the left side. Especially when you store it in a variable, when you use some variable in your var clause, right, to filter the data, you use var clause in SQL query. I'll show you later, okay? But in the table column, when the data got stored something like this, where status is equivalent to yes, you want to compare yes, but you would have given something like this, where column name, where status is equivalent to yes, you would have specified like this to filter the data from your data. But whereas in your table column, status actually is stored like this. Okay, in that case what you need to do is you need to use ltrim. Okay, so let us see what are the functions are available. ltrim, or let's say when I use trim, okay, trim function, it is not available. It is available here, right? So you can better use trim here. Trim will remove both the leading and trailing blank spaces. Look here, so it removed the blank spaces just before this and after this also. And you have rtrim. Rtrim is also available. Rtrim will remove the trailing blank space. Let's take the same example and try the rtrim. Let's see what happens here. It will remove the trailing blank spaces. After yes, whatever the blank space removed, but before this, whatever the blank space is there, it will not remove it, right? So that's how it works. Okay, so you can use trim in place of that one. So likewise, different functions are available here. You can see reverse function. Let's try reverse. Okay, and select reverse. I use reverse itself. Go, and I say execute. Look here, it reverses this string ESREVER. Simon, please bear with me because I have a non-programming background people are there. That's the reason why I'm just covering the basic level. Okay. Next one is we have concat. We already seen concat, isn't it? So we have just seen concat. Instead of using this, can I try? I don't remember if this is available in SQL. We have something called plus sign. Hello world. This is another way of yes, it's not highlighting anything here, so I just select and execute it here. Yes, we are good. So using plus sign also we can do the concatenation. You can concatenate the string type here using plus, using concat function. Concat underscore ws helps us to specify the separator between the string. And you have space returns a string of repeated spaces, and soundx return a 4-character code of string based on how it's spoken, right? SoundX function. You try SoundX function and SoundX. Why don't you give me some example? SoundX. Anybody? Can someone? Right, so nchar and all these functions you can try it out. Okay, all these functions you just try it out. And string split, right? So string split is also very much helpful. You just try all these things, okay? And replicate. We have something called replicate function. If you want to replicate certain things, yes, you can do it. Select replicate. Int, okay, replicate. I say welcome 10. Go. I look here. This welcome string got duplicated 10 times. Okay. Similarly, you try all the other functions. Okay, and see, if you get stuck up somewhere, you let me know. But anyhow, we don't have to. But if you learn both SQL Server related functions, you will get confused. Anyhow, there are certain functions are similar to common across all the programs, like substring, replace. Only the difference is the syntax thing. Okay, so in some language, in Python, use sub-str. Okay, and in Spark SQL, you will use sub-str. Okay, so the substring function, all these functions are available in all the programming language. But when you look at Python, you have something called regular expression. You can do wonders with regular expression. Okay, you can do some kind of pattern matching. Based on some pattern, you can extract the data from the data file. So those kind of features are available. Advanced, very very advanced features are in other programming languages. Okay, next one is the date time. Okay, date data type. And in the case of, importantly, upper lower case. If you want to convert the entire string into uppercase, from lowercase to uppercase, or if you want to convert any string into any case of the string into upper, you can use upper function. You can use lower function to convert your string into lower case. So substring, you can try all these things. Okay, but these are the most frequently used functions. Okay, especially the replace is very much helpful because we do a lot of data cleaning. Okay, in that case, the replace is very much in len function, replace function, substring function. These are very much helpful. And next one is the date type functions. So these are the date time functions are available in SQL Server. The current timestamp function will return the current date and time. Let us see how this date time function works. I'm going to use another query window. Select current time. Look here, when I type current timestamp, so you can see various functions are available. We want only the current timestamp function. Current timestamp function, I'm going to simply say like this. Execute it. It gives me. So the date format in SQL Server is like this. So the year, month, date. What is this? Hour, minute. And what is the last one? Hour, minute, second. Right. So hour, minute, second, millisecond. Right. Hour, minute. This is called millisecond. Triple M format. So it is in this format. Okay. This is in. I'm going to use comment. How do you specify comment? Prefix your comment by double hyphen. So here it returns year and hyphen dd space hour, minute, and second, and colon format. Okay, that's how it gives you the value, right? Current. What is today's date? It gives me the 9th January 2022. Now the time is 6:04, and this is the hour, a minute, and second, millisecond, something like that. Okay. Next one is we have something called sys time, sys date time. See, sys date time and sys date time offset is also available. It gives you your SQL Server date time stamp. Okay, my time now is this one. Okay, so 2020 year, month, date, hour, minute, second, milliseconds. Here also here it is a little I think triple lamb. Okay, so triple lamb gives you the millisecond. I think this is a microsecond. Okay, this is a microsecond. So this is the one it gives you. And the next one is, we have something called date part. Date part is also an important function using which you can extract the year from your given date month, right? So for example, I have something called date part function. Here what I do is I just want to extract year, okay, interval and year, and I want to say 2021. Yes, I say 21, and let's say the 5, right? So 05 as date part. So go. It gives me year. If you want to extract only the year, you can extract it from year. And also if you want to extract month alone, you can extract it from year. Right? So, okay, year typo. Month. So month in this format. Or if you want to look here, I just put all the things here. You can month, day of year. Okay, so if you want to extract the day of the year, all these options are available. So what you want to extract, that you need to specify it as a first argument. Okay, so and then the second argument is your column, or you can specify you can hard code it like this, or you can specify the column name from your table. Okay, let's say you have a ship date column. If you want to extract the month, day, or if you want to extract year, month, date separately, order date column, ship date column. So these columns, date columns, you want to extract only the year, month, date and week. Why do I have to extract year, month, quarter separately? Even day also, so the day name also we will extract it separately. Why do we have to do this? Because we want to perform some kind of year on year sales, month on month sales, quarter on quarter sales. In that kind of situations, we store year separately in a column, and a month in a separate column, day in a separate column. So in that kind of situation, these kind of functions are very much helpful. Okay, and also we have something called date from parts. Date from parts. For example, apart from date part, you have something called date from parts. Date from parts. So here, let's say I have something called 2021, and here I say month, year, month, and day is, let's say 10 as date from part. I say go here. So what is happening here? It is year, month, day, right? It is giving the basically it is returning a date from its parts, right? It returning the date from its parts. That is what is happening using date from parts. Okay, and if I say yeah, this is what you can do it. And also if you want to find out the difference between two dates, we have something called date diff function is available. Even in Power BI, the date diff function is available. Date diff to find out date diff as part of DAX expression. Date diff function is available. So for example, I want to find out so I want to find out the difference between the year. Okay, two dates. So let's say I have 2021 1 Okay, sorry, not 2021, right? Yeah, correct, right? So let's say 10, comma, let's say 2022. This is a date, and I say today is 06, or let's say some value, go. Sorry, no, that one. So the difference between these two date, what is the how many number of years, right? So what is the number of years in difference? So the year difference is 1 year, right? If you want to find out the month difference in month, you can find out month by specifying the month, right? Two different date, you can specify the month also. And you have something called date add. Supposing you want to add some dates, select date add, and supposing I want to add year, instead of adding days with my date, right? So I'm going to add 1 year to a date, and then I want to return the date. I want to add 1 year to the date. Supposing 2021, I want to add 1 year to that year, and then I want to return that date. Okay, so for example 2021, sorry, 2021, so 10/1. So in this case what happens, let's see. So we added 1 to this year, so 2022 10/1, right? It is doing that way. So that is how you can add 1 year to a date, or if you want to add 2 year to a date, you can specify that way. Okay, 1 year or 2 year, or if you say -1, so what happens, you will see date add -1. So what happened, 2020, it goes back -1. Okay, and if you want to add month to it, for example 2021, now I'll make it as 2022, so that you should be able to understand. You can validate, okay, whatever happens here. So here I say month, instead of year I say a month. Add only months to this one. For example, I'm going to add 2 year, or let's say I'm going to say 3. One 464, right? So no column. So sorry, this is a date diff. This is supposed to date add. I made a mistake. I'm feeling sleepy. So 4 month. So currently we are in. So the middle one is the month, okay, and this is the date. So here, what is the month? First month, January month. With the January month, I'm going to add 3 months. 3 plus 1 is 4, right? So now we are in April. April 1, 2022. So you can add month, you can add year. So can you add a date, right? You can try that one. Okay, try that option. So okay. Date diff, with date diff we can find out the difference between two date values. In years, on the months also you can find out, okay, and also you can find out, or also you can return a date from its parts using date from parts. And date part is very much helpful to extract year from a given date in year, month, date format, right? If you want to extract year, month, even hour also you can extract it. So you can use year, month, hour, you can use it, and day also you can extract it. Day of year you can extract it, quarter also you can extract it. So a lot of flexibilities, a lot of built, since you have more built-in functions are available, the more more advantage for us to use all these, leverage all these functions to extract any type of value from the given date. So date type functions. Okay, next what we will do is we'll take a look at the constraints. What are the constraints that are available? See, a lot of functions are available. I would suggest you to just try the other functions. EaseDate, whether it's the given column. Let's say you have a date column, ship date, order date, something like that. Okay. So in that case, what you do is use isDate function to validate whatever the you can import the data in SQL Server also. Instead of manually using the insert statement to insert the data, supposing you are given a data in a flat file. That flat file has close to 0.5 million records, right? So there is something called import option is available here. Usually the admin people, they use it, using which you can load the entire flat file data in one go. You don't have to generate multiple insert statement. Okay, you can use an import function, but in SQL Server I don't remember which exactly. I don't. In Oracle we use IMP function, even MySQL IMP, but SQL Server I don't know. But any of admin guys, they know, administrator, they know which function. But you must be having, yeah, you have some import option is available. With that you can load the entire data in one go. When you load the data in one go from your flat file to table, SQL Server table, what will happen is you need to check whether the before you import, right? So when you import it, it automatically converts the date data type. If you create the table with the specific column as a date data type, supposing you store the data in string format, right? So what will happen is before loading it, you can check whether it's a string format or number format. Sometimes, right, they use some for the date key, they use numeric data type. In that case, you need to check whether it's a number data type, numeric data type, or string data type before while loading it. Okay. So if it is a number data type, you need to change it to date format. Okay. Either you can use, let's say, you can use Power BI to simply, right, convert the number data type into date data type. Okay. So there are, when I cover Power BI query editor, will show you how to do that. Okay. So there are with the tools you can do it, but again you can validate whether the date column is a number data type or date data type. Use isDate function is very much helpful. SysDate time, it gives you the current, and here so almost get date, you have get date and date part, all these things we tried. You try the get date function, all these functions almost we tried, and you try the get date function, and yeah, that's all. So if you know this much, it is enough to manipulate to work with the date data type related columns. Next we will see what are the constraints that are available in SQL Server. Like other RDBMS, even in SQL Server, the SQL not null, unique constraint, and primary key constraint, foreign key constraint, check constraint, default constraint, right? Default values you can assign it to a table. Okay. If you don't enter any value to a specific column, with the help of default you can populate the values automatically. Okay. Supposing you have a column called status. The status, when let's say you are onboarding a new employee in your company, is SQL required to work in Power BI? Yes, you need to have SQL knowledge, Binay, because to test your report, supposing your source system is a SQL server or any RDBMS server, right? In that case, if you know SQL, it is very good. Okay. And again, we have something called query folding option, and also from the performance point of view, you can improve the performance by pre-aggregating some table data at the source system itself, source database system itself, so that you don't want the Power BI to do the extract the entire data into your Power BI, load the entire data into Power BI memory, and then if you perform the aggregation, it takes a lot of resources. What do you mean by resources? It will consume too much of memory, CPU, and also again the aggregation and all, right? It is a CPU intensive process, and also it consumes too much of memory. If you are dealing with 30 million, we are dealing with 30 million, 25 million, the weekly data volume itself, it comes that much. So in that kind of situation, yes, but you cannot expect when you join with a company, and when you join with an employer, and if they have they should have only the non-SQL related source system data, right? So they might be using JSON, they might be using SQL Server. In that case, you should be prepared. If you know SQL Server, it will be good. But SQL is the one commonly used, and also most of the customers now they are migrating from Tableau to Power BI. Okay, and those customers they already use Power. So those customers are migrating to Power BI, Microsoft product Power BI. They are already using Microsoft related products, including SQL Server and the ETL tool like SSIS, SSAS. Yes, SQL, SQL, learning SQL queries. To answer to your query, yes, you have to learn SQL query also, right? In that case, it is helpful. Multiple skill sets is very much helpful. Okay, these are constraints or rebel. Why do I need to have the constraints? What do you mean by constraints? Why should I have the constraints? With constraints, we can enforce the rules on at your table level itself, right? So the users, end users or applications, right? So it might miss out some, or let's say the users are entering the data in their application. Let's say they are generating the bill, they are not filling a specific column in it. There are certain informations are very much helpful. Certain fields needs to be filled with the data in the application also. If they don't do it, if they fail to do it, what will happen is the blank value will go to that column, and that blank value will get stored in your database. That column is a mandatory column. You need to have value in it. For example, in the case of insurance, the age of the, let's say automobile insurance, right? Car insurance, age of the vehicle is very much important. If you store blank value in it, how the insurance company can determine the premium for this car, right? This is a mandatory column. So by enforcing not null to this column, when you store the data, right, it will automatically see in the most of the cases in the application itself they do the validation. You have a column called age. The age should not be blank. If it is a blank, it should raise up the message. It should alert the users, those key in the data in this, right, insurance form, when they fill it here, age is mandatory, age of the vehicle. Sometimes what will happen is if this is not working, right, if they don't do the field level validation, this column will have blank value, this one will get stored in the table. But since you define the not null constraint at the table level itself, it will throw an error. So that means, hey, I need data for this because this is a mandatory column. You cannot store null value in it. And also using check constraint, we make sure that we are storing the right value in specific columns. Okay. So, and also primary key and foreign key constraints. Using primary key and foreign key constraints, we make sure that in the master table we are not storing the duplicate values in it. What if I allow you to store the duplicate values? What is the impact of that one? So we take for example in the case of bank, right? So you store the same customer in two different names, right, mistakenly, or two times. If you store the same customer record, what will happen is double counting can happen. His account balance is actually 50,000. Since you stored the same customer name more than one time, so what will happen is double counting can happen, right? So that's where we are using primary key constraint to avoid duplicates in your data set. Also foreign key, right? Using foreign key we can enforce the detail table or the transaction table should use only the master tables related records in it. Okay, don't enter some anomalies in it. Okay, so in that case when you generate the report, it will show some kind of inconsistent thing, or it will display some anonymous values. Okay, anomalies, it causes some anomalies. Okay, so to overcome that they introduce constraints. and default is also very much. So this one will save your time. Even if you have null values, some cases some columns it is not a mandatory column, but still you need to enter some value. For example, when you onboard a customer or onboard a new employer, when you onboard a new employer in your company, initially his department number will be null, because we are yet to assign him to a specific department. But I don't want to store any null value in it. Okay, so in that case what I do is I say some 999, some default value, so that when you query it, when you query this database with filtering condition like 999 depart number is equal to 999, that means these employees are yet to be assigned to a department. They are currently we have onboarded them, but they are not assigned to any department, which means they are not working. We are paying them, but they are not working. Default, when you use default, it automatically populates the value into this one. Okay, so now we will see each and everything. Okay, we will see how to create constraints. Okay, and all the things. Not null, as I told you, not null constraint will make sure that you are not storing a null values in the mandatory column. The unique constraint is is helpful to store only the unique values, not duplicate values. Even primary key is also helpful to store only the unique values in it. Then what is the difference between these two? When it comes to primary key, you in primary key column will not allow you to store the duplicate values. No duplicate, and also no null values. It will not allow you to store the null value. But whereas unique also no duplicates. It will not allow you any duplicates, but it allows you to store the null value. Okay, it will allow you to store the null value. So null value, but no duplicate. Okay, so null value also only one null value it will allow, right? So what is the example for? Can someone give me an example for? I have given you the not null, right? So for example, the age of the vehicle is an example for not null. This column is candidate for enabling not null, because it should have a mandatory value. So primary key is social security number. If you are in US, social security number, right? Only one person, each person's social security number is unique. And similarly in India, Aadhaar card. I don't know in Zimbabwe which number they use it, and other, right? So in US, social security number, Aadhaar number, each person, the Aadhaar number is unique. My Aadhaar number is different from your Aadhaar number. So in the case of, so this is an example for primary key. So what is the example for unique key? So can I have the null value for the Aadhaar number? You cannot have the null value. Or social security number, you are not supposed to have the null value. It is mandatory. This is another example for not null. And also it is unique. So look here. So in the case of primary key, no duplicate. So my Aadhaar number should not be used for other person. And also same record should not be repeated more. Even in my case also, right? My record should not be stored more than once. And also no null values. In the case of unique constraint, the same rule is applicable, but there is an exception. The example for unique key is phone number. My phone number is different from your phone number. Phone number is unique, but some people, let's say, some people, they do not have phone number. In that case, it can have null. No, we cannot expect all the people to have null value, right? So, to have the phone number. So, right, so in that case, unique constraint allows the null, but you need to have the you should not have the duplicate values, but it allows only one null value in it. Okay, and primary key, it is not allowing the duplicate value, no null value. Null values are not allowed. Okay, and foreign key and check constraint. Check by you specify some kind of constraint here. So those people the basic salary, or some those people are eligible for bonus, right? those people in a bonus or incentive. For example, in the case of incentive, so if the so and so thing, those people achieved the target more than something, they are eligible for this much incentive, something like that. Okay, it should not go beyond that value, so that you ensure that the wrong values are not getting into this specific column, incentive column. And what is the primary key and foreign key constraint? What is the primary key? Take this example. You have employee table and department table. Okay, so for this table, employee ID is the primary key. That means this column should have values in it and it should not have duplicate values. For example, if I say 101 again for the another employee, it is not accepted. You cannot leave blank space here. No blank, no duplicate values. Right? So that is what primary. In this table, employee ID is the primary key, but employee name can have duplicate values in it. For example, an employee ID by the name of 102, his name is also John, and he belongs to different department. He works as part of department number 30. The accounts department John is different from the research department John. Okay, and his salary is different. Okay, these two. So the point here is, this is the primary key. It should have only the unique values. Okay, here it not 102, 103. Okay, 102 if I specify, it's a duplicate. It is against the it is violating the primary key rule. Okay, so hence this value should be unique. You are not supposed to put 102 again here or 101 again here for another person. Okay, so it's like an Aadhaar card. Okay, and here in the department table, the department number is the primary key column. So here also the same rule is applicable. You are not supposed to have duplicates value. Okay, so in these two tables, in this table employed is the primary key. In this table, department number is the primary key. But when you look at this tables, department number column, right? We have some department number column is available in this table. But this department number column should hold only this table's department number value. Let's say here I have 30 here, I have research here. Right? So to enforce this one, we create the foreign key constraint at the table level itself. For example, in the table, when you create the table employee, you specify this table's column department number referencing department table's department number. Okay, that's how we need to say references this one. So there is a reserved word for that in order to create the foreign key constraint. Okay, so here why do we call, see, for this table, for this department table, the department number is the primary key, whereas the same department number in this employee table is a foreign key to this table. This is called foreign key. Here it is a primary key, it is foreign key, because this column is foreign to this table. The reason is the value for this column is coming from this table. Understood? So now you understood what is primary key, what is foreign key, what is unique number, unique constraint, and then the not null constraint and check constraint, and default thing is there. And what we will do is we will okay, so what we will do is I could see many of the guys, they missed out today's session. Today also I'm going to end this session little early. What you do is you start practice all the things whatever I covered in the interest of beginners. Beginners also they need some time to practice it. So next week onwards we will have 2 hours mandatory. Okay, so we'll be having 2 hours. If requires, we'll be having it 2.5 hours. Okay, probably later sometime we will see. We will try to to offset this one. We will compensate in the later session, right? Probably 15 minutes. If I cover 2.5 hours, it's too long. 2 hours 15 minutes. 2 hours 15 minutes. We'll try to cover it. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this now. You have any questions? Anybody has any question? Yes, sure. I'll send you the link for SQL practice and notes. Obviously, right? I'll send you the assignments to you all. Sometime tomorrow morning I'll send you the link for in my website. The assignments, everything is available, right? You can watch it and start practice it. I'll send you the link to you all, and also the table scripts, everything available. You can download it and create the table and populate the data and start practice. Anyhow, next weekend, Saturday, I will continue with the these constraints, right? I'll create a table and I'll show you how these constraints are, how you need to enforce all these constraints in your table with some example, and also we'll load some data and I'll show you, right? So, and we will test, and I'll test and show you, okay, how if you try to insert the null value into not null, what happens, right? And how to use default, how the check constraints can be enabled, what rules we can use, everything I'll show it to you. Followed by this, we will cover the joins. Joins is one of the important topics. But yeah, to Binay, to answer to your question, the joins is very common to any type of source system data. If you learn join in SQL or DBMS, it is very much helpful for you to understand the concept in Power BI. You have left join, right join, all the types of joins will be covered the next session. Okay, maybe that will take 20 to 25 minutes. The implementing the constraints, everything, right, will take show you this one 15 minutes. And then the next one is this one. Will start install a demo database called AdventureWorks Data Warehouse, AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. Okay, and next week it may not take more than 5 to 10 minutes. It will get installed. And once that is getting installed, we'll start with the simple SQL queries, and also we'll start practicing the little complex queries. Okay, and then what I do is we'll wrap up the SQL session next Saturday, and then Sunday we'll start with Power BI. Power BI, right? All put together 2 months will complete it. SQL and Power BI all put together 2 months will complete it. We'll see if you guys can pick up quickly. Couple of other guys also need to join, right? We'll cover Power BI, and then once I complete the Power BI, what I will do is I will start work on your profile and start floating it to the prospective employer. SSIS also will be covered, but I will just I will just show you how to create the ETL jobs, everything. But for beginners like you, I would suggest you to focus primarily on Power BI and SQL also. That is enough for you to, because if I train SSIS advanced level, middle level, advanced level, you will be overwhelmed. So when I start DAX commands, right, you will realize that one. Okay, and again, they don't ask you just DAX questions, they'll ask you with use cases. For different use cases, for example, you have group by in summarize. When you need to use group by, when you need to use summarize, why you have to use summarize, or why you need to use group by, can't you use single function? What are the limitations with that? They'll ask you limitations, and also they'll ask you the use cases. Okay, and also they'll ask you how to interpret the execution plan, virtual plan and physical plan. You will be completely one. To learn everything for the beginners, it will require definitely, after the training program, definitely you require 3 to 5 weeks time to explore everything. Okay, hence I would suggest the beginners to focus primarily on SQL and Power BI. SSIS, whatever I promise, I will cover it. Okay, don't worry. Okay, I will not skip anything. We'll cover it. But for you guys, you need time to practice it. But as soon as I complete the Power BI, we'll float your profile, and then we'll plan accordingly. Anyhow, we'll discuss this offline, Binay. All right. Any other questions? Binay, I know already I discussed, right? We'll discuss it one more time offline. Okay. Since I don't have any other questions from others, we will, we'll wrap up the session today, and we will resume the session from next weekend onwards. We will go continuously without we'll try to try not to have any break. All right, I will share the video after some time to you all, and also share the link for the assignments and also the SQL, whatever the demo I showed you now. We'll share that .sql files also. Start practice it. All right, see you next weekend. Bye bye, take care.
Recording.